My Story, Episode 6. Your story, my story. We'll figure it out. Actually, where I left you in the real time of the story was the Ides of March 2005, when three wise kids showed up at my door. And, well, I asked them a number of questions. I asked them what the value of California was, what the value of 999 years of justice, peace, and earth was. I asked them, well, various questions, but it was sort of along the paradigm of the 11 days in March until 3/11 when I offered to buy California. And that was sort of the story of a timeline. Now, as we move forward in my reality story, which might have, like, well, my reality is my reality, but I created in my mind some fantasy realities, some possible new realities, and the primary one was the one created in 3/11, or through the first 11 days in March, and that was the sort of the movie of us that we might call Atlas Rising. Atlas doesn't shrug, Atlas rises. You can see plenty about that, hear plenty about that in episode 5. I've called this story many things. I've called this story over the years his greatest story ever told, part 2. More recently, I've called it the history of the future of us. And at the beginning of history in the English language is his story. Well, who is he? I don't know. He is you, he is me, he is us. And that's a key part of the point. Okay, so, but what was this sort of movie? Okay, so this movie was the notion that a person could take ideas through the internet and advance those ideas directly to all the powerful and the wealthy and those dear leaders of Earth. And that those dear leaders could take those seeds of ideas and those kernels and would be inspired enough from those ideas and inspired enough from their potential possibility, if they got beyond their, let's call it their roots, there we go, if they got beyond our divides, our political divides, our religious divides, all those things that divide us, and work towards one future of us, sort of like taking the American dream and taking it worldwide, but the American dream is far from perfect, and taking the dreams and the best capabilities and the best institutions of all of our enterprises of the earth and making a far better global enterprise together. Okay, so that's the talking points. Okay, now what happened, I told you in one part of the story, I don't think I said in episode 5, but I had this vision of Osama bin Laden kissing Bush in the cheek, with Bush kissing back in the White House Oval Office many years ago. Well, around the same time in 2005. Now, that might have been a really weird story back then, but let's say that we actually did start to conspire from all the different paradigms that we think are enemies, and they conspired with each other. Now, why would they conspire? To hide the real truth from you. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because we're building a future of Earth, and part of my premise was that part of what we're programming and part of our destruction is that we're allowing our channels to program ourselves badly. But in the future of Earth, well, everything in our reality becomes our own story. In fact, the fantasy I wrote in my mind is larger as a reality than any fantasy Hollywood could ever dream. And therefore, well, it's the greatest movie that you could ever imagine, because it's a reality movie. And you just can't get beyond when your fantasy becomes a reality. Now, why would you do it? Why would you do it that way? Well, you'd want to conspire, because if the world had a bid,
we could buy it out secretly. See, we could make it go up, watch it go down, but behind the scenes, we could be buying it up. We could be watching the volatility with the innumerable anointed capital. Well, how did I do it? Well, my plan was, that's why I gave him a 2-bump promotion in the hierarchy on the board of angels, is to take Mad Money, James Cramer, and make him hedge fund manager to the world with inside information of unworldly proportions that the entire earth had a bid, and he and the angels were the only one who knew. And because we had a bid for the people, we were able to conspire among ourselves with the rich, buying out themselves and merging their interest to buy a new enterprise for all people on earth, in conjunction with the powerful leaders of all their nations who see it as the only path to their salvation from the death spiral of their debt. And well, the debt's come due, as they say. But anyway, so that was the story back then. Now what does that mean to your timelines? Well, let's take the Osama bin Laden story. See, your story doesn't make sense when I heard it, and I was in a little manic state at the time in a way, but it still doesn't make sense on many paradigms now. Why would Obama kill Osama? And how did we ever get an Obama after an Osama? That gets really strange when you really think about it. It's almost like we invented him in 2004 or 5. And well, so anyway, here's the thing. Why would Obama kill Osama? Now, if he was playing the old-fashioned way of president, why not secretly tell us, everybody, that he was dead, but then squirrel him away into Guantanamo and torture him to your heart's content, or find out what he knows? You see, there's no benefit to killing him, of course. See, by telling everybody he's dead, you don't have to put him on trial. You avoid all that spectacle. But I think it's my story that maybe he's already on the team, and that, well, hopefully we could get Al-Qaeda on the team and, well, retire him out on a desert island. What price could we pay for peace on earth? Who might we buy off for peace on earth? Well, you can't just buy them off with money. We must buy them off with a better vision for all, and that's also part of the point. But so the timelines get strange. So lots of things you think might have happened might have been made up. Like Elliot Spitzer, James Cramer's friend. Maybe he never did it with that girl in Washington or wherever. And, well, as soon as he did or didn't, we hired him as Attorney General for We the People of Earth. That's what I called our enterprise ultimately. Initially, I called it the United Worlds of Harmony Star. But ultimately, I call it We the People of Earth. It's .biz. Anyway, so, in my reality, there are people you think are dead, they're alive. Many people. We conducted wars and deaths and killing, but they were only on your TV screens. Tiger never did it with those women. That was an illusion. Arnold never did it with the maid. That was an illusion. Well, in my illusion, my fantasy world, we might have created our own illusion so that we can come back at the time of arrival and said, look at this. We fooled you all. We can present reality any way we want to. We can wag your dog and you won't know reality from fiction, and that's stranger than fiction. And so the show I created was sort of like the Truman Show meets Forrest Gump. And well, I'm just a crazy old guy, but imagine the crazy old guy could talk to the top, and the top could be taught how to buy out the bottom, from the bottom to the top. But anyway, let's get back to what is taking the American dreams worldwide. Well, you see, it was the notion originally of a revolution from the top to the bottom. Now, in a later instantiation, a few months later, following up in the summer of 2005, I began another scenario of a revolution from the bottom to the top. And it's a revolution that could be conducted on your internet, by me on YouTube if I wanted, any time. It's a revolution of mind. And well, it's a revolution of us from the bottom to the top. But that's ultimately only not going to work unless we get the top on board. And I think it's easily gotten without the bottom, like putting a virtual revolutionary gun to the head. Anyway, as I got along in the partnership that I ultimately created over the next couple of weeks or few weeks, I got to the point that, well, one of my technology guys said, holy bleep. That's not the word he said, he used the F word. We could hold worldwide elections. And at that time, I knew that if we wanted to conduct a revolution from the bottom to the top, with the technology at our hands, we had the dear leaders of Earth surrounded from the top and the bottom to the middle. Anyway, so on the Ides of March, I thought, if I was maybe crazy, then I might be smart, because of a lot of the people I knew in the past that were crazy were very smart. And so, and I thought, if I'm crazy and I'm going to start a startup company, that was my plan. I'll do my own thing and I'll start a startup company. And so I said, okay, if I'm really crazy and I need a second opinion and I want to find out if I'm really crazy. So I went to first I went for a checkup, and the checkup said he wouldn't check me up because I was onto his Medicare fraud, but we won't go into that. And I got to another doctor, and he checked me up and said, first thing I want you to see is a shrink. And I said, good, I'm going to see the shrink anyway. And so I went to the shrink, some darling lady. Told the lady I was going to spend $250,000 or some amount I could afford, and I was going to create the next $100 billion Google virtually overnight. And she never said anything, didn't give me diagnosis, didn't say I was crazy, gave me a bag as a bricks, went back, gave me another bag as a bricks. Now, maybe it's crazy because I couldn't do it, but the notion of taking $250 million and making $100 billion, to say that's crazy is just absolutely insane if the monetary standards of your method of world is dollars. Anyway, so that is the point, not the point. Anyway, so I started out with the three wise kids brainstorming, but I actually contacted some people, some person I knew from the beginning of the technology business, and I said, listen, if I told you you could have a piece of my new enterprise, would you agree to one principle, that you would limit the maximum amount you take out of this enterprise, and that you're stop out at 1 billion? And my friend said, no problem. So I gave him half the equity in the enterprise for $1 billion. And he said, we need a technology guy. And I said, would you agree to give him a third if he stopped out at 1 billion? And he agreed. And so we had the starting of what I would term later as internet capitalism, or what I would later describe as guerrilla capitalism. That's right, guerrilla capitalism. Actually, in the spring of 2005, invented guerrilla capitalism. But that was the business paradigm of my technology model. But the important thing we did was we created a notion. Let's get it to you quick before I have to change the channel again. But here was the notion. See, we came from the Wi-Fi business, and we know that at the heart of the Wi-Fi was the access point. And actually, we knew at the time that there were two chip-level things, two kinds of chip, two Intel insides, if you will, in the Wi-Fi business, Broadcom and Atheros. And then we could actually write software that would layer itself on top of those chips and take over and create its own network, a virtual wireless network connected over the internet, secured and connected privately, that we could actually move the internet, that we wouldn't even need you on the internet as it was, that we could provide people with security and with safety from the wild rest of your internet, and that we could provide people with a new connection into a new enterprise. And that's where the guerrilla capitalism came in. Because if we could allow you to participate in the profits of building this enterprise, it would become the people's Wi-Fi network. And you couldn't stop the people with their own Wi-Fi network, determined to grow worldwide with guerrilla capitalism, taking everything over from your businesses and ultimately your banks with a new enterprise stock in new currency. And that's the part of the future that's next.